Nestle is everywhere. From your morning coffee to your chocolate bar, from bottled water to pet food, this one company has its fingerprints all over the global food supply. In fact, Nestle owns over 2,000 different brands that you most likely use every single day. But behind the friendly logos and catchy slogans lies one of the most controversial corporations in modern history. How did a small Swiss company that started with baby formula become the world's largest food conglomerate, and why has its name become synonymous with corporate greed, exploitation, and scandal? Let's unpack the history of Nestle, its rise, its power, and some of the long list of controversies that continue to haunt it. The story begins in 1867 with a German pharmacist named Henry Nestle. His breakthrough? A powdered infant formula made from cow's milk, wheat flour, and sugar, specifically designed to combat infant malnutrition, which was a serious problem at the time. This wasn't just a product, it was a lifeline for countless families, and the little bird logo, symbolizing nest and care, quickly became a mark of trust, signaling that Nestle wasn't just selling food, it was offering safety and nourishment. By 1904, Nestle was branching out. They began selling the first edible milk chocolate, building on a partnership with Peter and Kohler, a chocolate company that relied on Nestle's condensed milk to create their treats. Just a year later, in 1905, Nestle merged with the Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company, their largest competitor in the infant formula market. This wasn't just a business move, it was a strategic leap, consolidating power and laying the groundwork for a multinational presence. Then came 1914, and with it, World War I. Suddenly, condensed milk and chocolate weren't just luxury or convenience, they were essential. Soldiers needed portable, durable, and energy-dense foods for the front lines, and Nestle's products fit the bill perfectly. Demand exploded almost overnight, sending the company's growth into overdrive. By the end of the war, Nestle operated more than 40 factories spread across the United States, Australia, and Switzerland. This was more than expansion, it was a transformation. Nestle was no longer just a company selling baby formula. They were building a global food empire, diverse, powerful, and unstoppable, a company that would go on to touch almost every corner of the modern diet. Throughout the 20th century, Nestle pursued an aggressive acquisition strategy that transformed it from the Swiss company into one of the largest food conglomerates on the planet. The company snapped up Maggi, a staple for instant noodles and seasonings, Carnation for its evaporated milk, Kit Kat, one of the world's most popular chocolate bars, Perrier with its premium mineral water, Purina in the booming pet food sector, and Gerber, a household name in baby food, just to name a few. These acquisitions weren't isolated moves. They represented Nestle's broader strategy of embedding itself into every possible consumer market, from children's snacks to pet care to bottled water. By the 1980s, Nestle wasn't just a food company, it was a global juggernaut with products on store shelves in nearly every country on Earth. But this sweeping success came at a cost. Expansion on such a scale required not only logistical dominance, but also highly aggressive marketing tactics. Nestle's drive to secure and expand market share often blurred the line between smart business strategy and outright exploitation. It was during this era of rapid growth that the company became embroiled in its first major global controversy, a controversy that didn't just tarnish its reputation, but also sparked one of the largest corporate boycotts of the 20th century. In the 1970s, Nestle faced one of the most significant corporate backlashes in history over how it marketed infant formula in developing countries. At the time, public health organizations and medical experts were encouraging breastfeeding as the most natural, cost-effective, and healthy option for infants. Breast milk not only provides essential nutrients and antibodies that protect against disease, but it is also free and accessible to virtually every mother. Instead of supporting this practice, Nestle was accused of deliberately undermining it in order to expand its infant formula market. The company's tactics were especially controversial. Saleswomen dressed in nurse-like uniforms entered hospitals and maternity wards, handing out free samples of Nestle formula. To vulnerable new mothers, this appeared to carry medical authority, suggesting that formula was equal to, or even better than breastfeeding. Once mothers began using the formula, their natural milk supply often diminished or dried up entirely, leaving them dependent on Nestle products. The situation became even more dire in regions where clean water was scarce. Families had to mix the formula with contaminated water, and many could not afford to purchase the recommended quantities, leading to over-dilution. The result was widespread malnutrition and illness among infants who were fed the product. The scandal triggered a wave of outrage across the globe. In 1977, consumer advocacy groups launched an international boycott of Nestle products, which quickly spread to dozens of countries and became one of the earliest and most famous examples of grassroots consumer activism against a multinational corporation. Nestle was cast as the poster child for unethical marketing, accused of prioritizing profit over the health and survival of infants, especially in some of the world's most vulnerable regions. Although the boycott officially ended in 1984 after Nestle agreed to abide by the World Health Organization's International Code of Marketing for Breast Milk Substitutes, critics argue that violations continue to this day. Reports from parts of Africa and Asia suggest that Nestle and other formula companies still employ manipulative advertising tactics, raising questions about whether the lessons of the 1970s have truly been learned, or if corporate pressure continues to outweigh global health concerns. If the infant formula scandal cast doubt on Nestle's ethics, the company's bottled water empire has only deepened the controversy.
Not everyone loves water unless it tastes great. Nestle Pure Life has a delicate and refreshing taste thanks to its balanced mineral composition. Nestle Pure Life. Great water, great taste.
Today, Nestle controls a vast portfolio of water brands, including Poland Spring, Perrier, and Pure Life, that make it one of the largest bottled water companies in the world. While the products are marketed as symbols of purity and health, the practices behind sourcing that water have drawn fierce criticism and fueled accusations of corporate exploitation. The heart of the controversy lies in where and how Nestle extracts its water. In regions already struggling with water scarcity, the company has been accused of draining local groundwater supplies to fuel its global bottled water business. In California, for example, during the state's historic droughts in the 2010s, Nestle continued extracting millions of gallons of groundwater for its Arrowhead brand, while residents faced strict water restrictions and farmers battled crop failures.
Backlash is growing over where the world's top bottled water producer gets its supplies. Nestle collects millions of gallons a year from springs in Southern California, an area that's actually prone to drought. And as the company tries to meet the rising demand, activists are voicing their concern.
Nestle has faced protests over its water collection in California, both because of the drought and the fact that this site is on public land. While the company takes about 30 million gallons each year, they paid just $524 to the U.S. Forest Service for the permit.
The fees Nestle paid for this privilege were shockingly minimal, sometimes just a few $100s in permits for access to millions of gallons of water. Similar complaints have arisen in Michigan, Canada, and parts of South America, where communities claim their local ecosystems and water tables are being depleted for corporate gain. For critics, the issue is not just about environmental strain, but also about the underlying philosophy of Nestle's approach. By commodifying water, arguably the most essential resource for human survival, Nestle stands accused of prioritizing profits over basic human rights. This criticism was only amplified when former Nestle CEO Peter Brabeck sparked outrage by suggesting in a 2005 interview that water is not a fundamental human right, but rather a resource that should be priced, managed, and distributed by corporations.
Die eine Anschauung, extrem würde ich sagen, wird von einigen von den NGOs vertreten, die darauf pochen, dass Wasser zu einem öffentlichen Recht erklärt wird. Das heißt, als Mensch sollten Sie einfach Recht haben, Wasser zu haben. Das ist die eine Extremlösung. Ja? Und die andere, die sagt, Wasser ist ein Lebensmittel, so wie jedes andere Lebensmittel, sollte das einen Marktwert haben. Ich persönlich glaube, es ist besser, man gibt einem Lebensmittel einen Wert, sodass wir alle bewusst sind, dass das etwas kostet.
Although Nestle later tried to soften or walk back these statements altogether, the damage to its public image was already done. The bottled water controversy has since become one of the most enduring criticisms of the company. Environmental groups, indigenous communities, and consumer activists continue to challenge Nestle's extraction practices, arguing that no corporation should have the power to turn a public necessity into a private luxury commodity. Just as the infant formula scandal highlighted the dangers of unethical marketing, the bottled water debate has made Nestle a symbol of the broader struggle over whether essential resources should be protected for the public good or left in the hands of profit-driven corporations. The chocolate bars that made Nestle a household name, Kit Kats, Crunch Bars, Butterfingers, and countless others, are made with cocoa. But behind the sweetness of these products lies one of the darkest and most persistent scandals in the global food industry: the widespread use of child labor and exploitation in cocoa production. For decades, the cocoa industry has been heavily dependent on farming in West Africa, particularly in the Ivory Coast and Ghana, which together produce more than half of the world's cocoa. These regions have long been plagued by poverty, weak labor protections, and exploitive practices that make them fertile ground for abuse. Throughout the 2000s, investigations by journalists and human rights organizations uncovered shocking realities. Children as young as 8 were found working long hours in hazardous conditions. Many wielded machetes to harvest cocoa pods, carried heavy loads, or were exposed to toxic pesticides, all for little or no pay. Some were trafficked across borders and forced into labor, raising international concerns about slavery-like practices in the supply chain of the world's biggest chocolate companies. Nestle quickly became one of the focal points of this scandal. In 2005, the company was sued in the United States, accused of complicity in child slavery by knowingly sourcing cocoa from farms that used forced child labor. Nestle denied direct responsibility, arguing that its supply chains were too vast and too complex to fully monitor. This defense, however, did little to quell public outrage. Human rights groups continued to release reports linking Nestle's products to exploitive practices, highlighting a pattern of systemic abuse that the company had pledged but struggled to eliminate. Even as late as 2021, Nestle found itself named in a U.S. Supreme Court case that alleged ongoing complicity in forced child labor. Though the court ultimately dismissed the case, critics saw the lawsuit as evidence that meaningful progress remained elusive. Nestle, along with other major chocolate companies, have repeatedly announced initiatives to improve transparency, certify sustainable cocoa, and invest in programs aimed at reducing child labor. Yet watchdog organizations argue that progress has been painfully slow, and millions of children are still believed to be working in the cocoa industry today. The cocoa controversy underscores one of the biggest challenges facing global supply chains: the ability of multinational corporations to trace and control labor practices at the farthest reaches of their operations. For Nestle, it represents not just a stain on its reputation, but also a symbol of the broader tension between corporate profit and human rights. Just as with infant formula and bottled water, the story of Nestle's chocolate empire raises a troubling question: how much exploitation lies hidden in the products we consume every day? Nestle's environmental track record has also drawn sustained criticism, painting a picture of a company whose global scale comes with equally global ecological consequences. Beyond its controversial water extraction practices, Nestle has been singled out as a major contributor to plastic pollution. The company's reliance on single-use plastic bottles and disposable packaging has made it one of the world's top plastic polluters year after year, according to Greenpeace and other environmental watchdogs. Surveys of ocean debris and plastic waste consistently place Nestle alongside other consumer giants at the top of the list, raising questions about whether its business model is fundamentally incompatible with the fight against pollution. Deforestation adds another troubling dimension. Many Nestle products rely on palm oil, a cheap and versatile ingredient used in everything from candy bars to instant noodles, but palm oil production has long been linked to the destruction of tropical rainforests in Indonesia, Malaysia, and beyond. This deforestation doesn't just release massive amounts of greenhouse gases, it also wipes out critical habitats for endangered species like orangutans, tigers, and elephants. In the late 2000s and 2010s, Greenpeace and other NGOs repeatedly called out Nestle for sourcing palm oil from suppliers connected to illegal logging and rainforest clearance. One particularly infamous campaign in 2010 featured a viral video equating the consumption of a Kit Kat bar with the destruction of an orangutan habitat, forcing Nestle to temporarily cut ties with some suppliers. In response to mounting public pressure, Nestle pledged a series of reforms. The company is committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050, phasing out unsustainable palm oil, and making all of its packaging recyclable or reusable by 2025. These promises, however, have been met with skepticism, especially since at the time of writing, it is currently 2025, and Nestle has updated its goal to say their packaging is designed for recycling instead of being fully recyclable, saying that its goals were no longer achievable. And despite years of pledges to reduce plastic waste, Nestle still produces billions of single-use bottles annually, many of which end up in landfills or polluting waterways. The large disconnect between Nestle's promises and its actions has led to accusations of greenwashing, a corporate strategy in which companies market themselves as environmentally responsible while continuing business practices that harm the planet. Nestle frequently advertises its sustainability commitments in glossy reports, press releases, and packaging labels, but critics argue that these pledges function as more public relations campaigns than genuine solutions. By presenting itself as a leader in the fight against climate change and pollution, Nestle seeks to maintain consumer trust while postponing the kind of fundamental changes, such as drastically reducing plastic production or restructuring its supply chains, that would truly cut its environmental impact. For many, Nestle's environmental controversies are not just about plastic or palm oil, they're about trust. They raise a deeper question. Can a corporation built on mass consumption and disposable convenience ever become sustainable, or are its promises just another marketing strategy designed to protect its brand while the planet pays the price? Nestle's rap sheet doesn't end with infant formula, bottled water, cocoa, or environmental damage. Over the years, the company has been implicated in a wide range of scandals that further cement its reputation as one of the world's most controversial corporations. Accusations have included price fixing, misleading health claims, worker exploitation, and even political interference to secure valuable resources. Together, these incidents reveal a pattern of behavior in which Nestle consistently pushes ethical and legal boundaries in pursuit of profit. For example, in the early 2000s, Nestle was fined by the European Union for its role in a price-fixing cartel that artificially inflated the cost of chocolate in several countries. The case highlighted the company's willingness to manipulate markets to its advantage, at the expense of consumers. Other lawsuits have accused Nestle of making misleading health claims about its baby food products, suggesting they were healthier than they actually were, despite rising global concerns about childhood nutrition. At the same time, critics have noted the hypocrisy of Nestle heavily marketing sugary cereals, candy, and processed foods, even as obesity rates surged worldwide, undermining its own public image as a company committed to health and wellness. Labor exploitation has also been a recurring issue. Nestle has faced criticism for poor working conditions and unfair wages among its suppliers, particularly in developing countries where oversight is weakest. Reports have documented cases of migrant workers trapped in exploitive contracts or subjected to unsafe conditions in industries tied to Nestle's supply chains, from palm oil plantations to seafood sourcing. Adding to this, the company has frequently been accused of leveraging its political and financial clout to influence local governments. In some regions, Nestle has been accused of lobbying aggressively or even interfering in local politics to secure access to water rights, land, or favorable regulatory conditions. These allegations reinforce the perception of a corporation that prioritizes its own expansion over the sovereignty and well-being of the communities in which it operates. Taken together, these controversies demonstrate that Nestle's ethical challenges are not confined to any single product or market. Instead, they reflect a broader corporate culture that critics argue is driven by profit maximization at nearly any cost. Whether through collusion, misleading advertising, or political pressure, Nestle has repeatedly shown a willingness to bend the rules and exploit vulnerabilities in the global system. For many observers, this accumulation of scandals makes Nestle less of an outlier and more a case study in how multinational corporations can concentrate power and sidestep accountability on a global scale. Today, Nestle stands as the largest food and beverage company in the world, a corporate giant with more than 2,000 brands spread across 186 countries. Its portfolio is staggering, generating well over $100 billion in annual revenue, and its products are so ubiquitous that it's nearly impossible to go through a grocery store or even a single day without encountering something tied to the company. Yet, despite this dominance, Nestle's reputation has never fully escaped the shadow of its controversies. Decade after decade, scandals have followed the company, from the infant formula boycotts of the 70s to ongoing accusations of child labor, environmental destruction, and political manipulation. The pattern has become strikingly familiar. For every bold sustainability pledge, there is an expose revealing unethical practices. For every philanthropic campaign, there is a lawsuit or investigation alleging human rights abuses. Nestle presents itself as a company committed to nutrition, sustainability, and corporate responsibility, but its critics argue that these commitments often serve as glossy marketing veneers, covering up systemic problems. This dual reality of immense global influence on the one hand and a legacy of ethical controversy on the other defines Nestle's place in the modern world. It is both an unavoidable presence in daily life and a lightning rod in debate about the power of multinational corporations. Whether Nestle is seen as a symbol of progress, efficiency, and global reach, or as a case study in corporate overreach and exploitation depends largely on which side of its history you choose to emphasize. What is clear, however, is that Nestle's story is not just about food, but about the consequences of concentrated corporate power in a globalized world. So what do we do with Nestle? On one side, it feeds millions. On the other, it's a case study in how unchecked corporate power can shape not just markets, but lives. And that's the real lesson here. This isn't just about candy bars or bottled water. It's about what happens when a single company has the leverage to decide the price of food, the future of resources, and the boundaries of human rights. Because when a baby formula startup grows into a global empire that controls your coffee, your chocolate, and even your drinking water, the question isn't just what's in our food, it's who owns it, and how much control we're willing to give to them. This was just a brief summary of Nestle's history. I couldn't include everything here. If there's anything you think I left out that's important, please leave it in the comments below. And thank you for watching.